How the hell do they do
Semantics, Dallas.
I don't
Semantics,
know.
Dallas.
The internets, they want to be technical. They want to be absolute and precise.
Jon
Like your
Caramanica.
haircut.
John, how do you get
Very
into the New York
precise.
Times?
That was a backhanded compliment, Josh.
Kind of was. It kind of was.
I see you, Josh. I see you right there. I see you over there stunting.
But wait, I thought that was a one-time thing, the bowl.
Wow.
Can I tell you something? This cut on the 4th day that's when it really
That's
gets
when it
nice.
gets sexy,
Oh,
right?
all
okay.
right, he's got to go
That
with
is
that.
Yeah.
flavor.
Yeah, okay.
That is the Floby.
All right.
That is the Floby. Remember the Floby?
All
Yikes.
right, I got my lady cutting my hair.
You got a Floby?
No.
He still has one.
No, I
He
don't.
has a
have
Ralph Lauren Floby. Comment.
Yes.
Let's go.
Let's go. So, John, man, how do you
Yes.
get this gig, man?
Again,
this
it's-
illustrious gig. B.
I've had a lot of not to sound like 2 Chainz, but like I've had a lot of blessings. I've been very fortunate. And like I said, the timing of this job opening, these are jobs like I'm a pop critic. There are 2 of us. John Perellis, who's the chief pop critic, has been there for 30 years. That dude's not going anywhere.
Right.
So from the
unless we kill him.
I mean, let's not
And eat him.
Let's
and then
not.
you move up.
Let's not. Here's the thing. Like I do what I do. Like, you know what I mean? Like I love him doing what he does, and I do what I do.
Right.
It's I'm my own, like, it's very rare that I'm like, I wish I could do that thing.
So that's odd because I feel like for pop culture kind of mirrors the competition, consumerism and competition. So in a way, this veteran pop culture critic, you got to be like looking at him like you brontosaurus.
So how'd you get this gig, man?
Like I said, the door opened.
Right.
The previous employee, the previous owner of my job, was this cat, Kay Sane, who took a gig at The New Yorker. And then the job was open. And since I had free time.
I would throw K. Santa on the ground. I would body slam him. I did have a lot of problems.
Do you want me to
with
tell him you said that?
Tell him that.
Okay, I'll pass that
tell
along.
Tell him we'll meet. We'll meet in the street.
Wow.
I used to. Well, I mean, I was one of his critics, but I mean, again, he is a good writer.
He's a good writer. He's a very good
He's
writer.
a great writer, but just
And
you
he
know,
also, the thing that's important to remember, whether you liked his writing or you didn't like his writing, he did a lot of work to loosen up the idea of what a pop music critic could cover in a place like the New York Times.
Right.
Because I think it's real easy to go into a place like the Times and be like, well, I'm covering major label rock and major, like, big rap
Because
albums.
the New York Times is a highbrow institution.
And it's highbrow, and it's also super mainstream.
Right.
It's super down the middle. I think Kay did a good job of starting to introduce like weird Southern rappers and you know, death metal and da. So it opens up the boundaries of what the job is. And he opened the door. And I feel like in the last 4 or 5 years, I've just been like, psst.
Well, did you have to compete for this gig though? Was it stiff? Or,
There were people who applied, but what had happened is I was
had
basically
happened?
free.
Right.
So I started picking up the sort of the meat and potatoes of the work is live show reviews. So I started picking up 2-3 a week,
Right.
just because I had no job. I was also unemployed.
Right.
I mean, I just quit Vibe. So I was like, I guess this is how I'll make money. So I started doing that. And I think if it was whack, I would have lasted a month and
Right.
they would have said, thanks, but no thanks. Go find another job. It wasn't. So it just kept going. And eventually I got put on contract and eventually got put on staff.
Now, how'd you feel, man? How'd you feel when you got put on, man?
I gotta be honest, like, I don't, it's like a union job, right? And that's not something that had much resonance for me because I don't really come from, like, my dad fixed cars, but it's like, it's a small shop. It's not like he worked for Ford or Chrysler. So just the idea of being a stable place that pretty much lets me be the writer and thinker that I want to be.
Right, that you are.
And people seem to respect that I do that and kind of let me live. I mean, look, that's the biggest blessing.
Right.
That's the legit biggest blessing.
Dental, medical.
We good.
So do you have free reign? Do you feel you have free reign over there?
I wouldn't say I have 100%
Right.
free reign. I feel like I've got 90% free reign.
Right.
I feel like they trust my taste. The thing with the critics, look, it's not like film critics. It's not like film criticism where you have to review every movie that comes out.
Right.
That's just the job, the
Right.
nature of the job. Music, you couldn't possibly review every album that comes out.
Not at all.
I always tell people the decisions that John Prellis and I make that are the most important decisions are what not to cover. It's not what to cover. It's what do we ignore. I ignore albums that come out and debut in the top 5 because I know they're boring and I don't want to waste a day of my life thinking about them. So it's a question of what do we choose to cover and what do we choose to ignore. That's a big thing.
Those are decided by you guys. You decide what you want to.
I mean, we have an editor, but basically we're given a fair amount of latitude as far as what we cover.
Now, I remember I read somewhere that you, in a sense, have kind of like this digging in the crates approach to the stories that you want to write. Like you kind of search and see what topic resonates with you.
I feel very, look, for example, last week, like we do, album reviews every week, and last week's like an incredibly slow week for album reviews.
Right.
So I have to like G up and do like a Christian rock album because like there's only like 5 albums coming out. So I reviewed a Chris Tomlin album just because I know about Chris Tomlin.
Right.
So like that's what I'll do.
Awesome.
Lecrae would have been the easy choice.
It's funny. There was a long thing with Lecrae last year, I think I maybe even covered Lecrae at Vibe in a weird way. Like I was up on Lecrae like a long time ago. But my attitude is, look, the page is the page. You open the page, you see the name. It could be about Rakim. It could be about Kanye West. It could be about something you've never heard of.
Right.
But it's in the New York Times, so hopefully you're going to take it seriously. I try not to abuse the reader's trust, but I also feel like if I can get something that's interesting and one notch better or cooler or more fascinating than the obvious choice, I'm winning, and hopefully the readers are winning.
Now, who are you writing for though? Like, because
I'm writing for me.
Yeah, you're writing for.
I'm writing for me.
I get the impression that you're writing for yourself and your peers.
I'm writing for me. I'm writing for me and like 5 of my friends.
Right.
And sometimes not even them. Like basically, I feel I trust my instinctual pathway through pop music. Especially in some, certainly in hip hop and in R&B and frankly in most genres. So I trust that taste implicitly. If people glom onto it or get excited by it, that thrills me. If they don't, I know I'm doing right by me,
right.
And I think and by the readers as well.
John, do you consider yourself a hip hop journalist?
Wow, that's a very 90s question.
I'll tell you why. Because you and I had a little discussion on Twitter.
Oh, that fake G check you tried to do?
Well,
that was an
I
extreme,
don't.
What was that?
That was an extremely fake G check. Yeah.
The truth was the question started that I threw out there: is there a hip hop journalist that hasn't had their integrity compromised? So people started throwing me names, and someone threw me John's name, and I was like, nah, John is not a hip hop journalist.
What'd you call him?
Well, I considered John a pop culture critic, and you've moved away from.
Yeah, I don't only write about rap music.
Right.
But
right.
I also think you weren't totally familiar with my history.
I wasn't totally familiar
Right.
with your history, but I was looking at people where they were at the moment, and really, I honestly, when I put that question out there, it was really a shot at someone else. And
Ooh, I'd like to know who.
Who was it a shot at, man?
you always want people to dry snitch.
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
Dry or
This is
wet.
entertainment,
Either
man.
one.
Just do you want me to name names? Just
I think that would be.
in this case,
I think that'd be incredibly
normally I do
productive.
not advocate the dry snitching. I think in this case, it's all right.
All right, go for it.
here we go in 2013 again. Dry snitching on the Combat Jack show.
Yes.
I was throwing a shot at Elliot Wilson.
Okay.
Only because we were all having a discussion about just the information that would be posted on Rap Radar, and whether Elliot had been kind of co-opted
By the industry.
Yes.
What do you think?
Well, I would argue that there's no one who writes about hip hop who isn't co-opted by the industry
In some form or fashion. Or
Absolutely.
Just at all. You mean at all?
Absolutely. I mean,
Do you think it's a lights, it's on or off? Or you think you could be in the middle somewhere?
I don't think you can be in the middle, because what happens is if anyone likes to write about hip hop, if anyone likes to write about rap, then the industry comes after them and says, "Hey, listen, I love you. Come here."
But this is to sidebar off the Elliot thing. This is why I like my job. Because I can't take junkets, I can't take anything for free. I can't let a publicist buy me lunch or dinner.
You can't be convinced.
I mean, there are like 6 publicists who have my cell number.
Right.
They can call me because I've known them for 10 years. But like, you can't just call me.
Right.
You can't just talk to me about your artists. Like, definitely don't talk to me about your artist. If your artist is good, I'll find your artist.
So interesting
In fact, I probably
stuff.
found your artist before you were.
And you
there,
kind of
right?
have like an aversion to publicists in a sense.
I mean, like I said, there are a few people who I've known for a long time
Right.
were coming up at the same time I was coming up, and I feel some personal affection for those people. But I feel like almost everything that I find that's good, I found because I looked for it. I get 20 CDs a day or 30 a day in the mail. If that's how you're trying to get my attention,
That's not working.
no. You're off. And I think for someone like me who really takes the job seriously, and not only do I seek things out, but I want to be better than the next guy. I want to write about some shit you've never heard of.
Right.
Pitching me is kind of a dead end.
You know what you like, and you're comfortable with what you like.
So as we said,
Or what
off
you
air-
don't like.
right, for sure. And as we said off air, like, look, I write 200 pieces a year, 220 pieces a year. They're not all masterpieces.
Right.
When I was a freelance magazine journalist, maybe I wrote 30 or 40. You have more time to focus, more time to craft. If someone's like, that piece isn't well written, maybe they're right. Maybe it was a bad day. Maybe I wrote it at 5 a.m. when Dallas is on Twitter.
I'm always on Twitter, John.
Well, fair enough.
Watching you,
Yeah, please.
looking at you.
Pause.
There we go.
That was
So, but I mean, like, not to throw it back at you, but like, what's a thing that someone could say that I would be like, oh, he got me.
Right.
I don't know what that thing is. When Dallas was saying what he was saying, I was like, number one, he doesn't totally know. And we've had dealings before.
Right.
Like, I don't feel like he's even being super malicious.
No.
And I only came in the conversation after like 2 or 3 go backs where I was just like, all
A
right.
couple of retweets.
Yeah, and I was just like, I'm up. It's
Right.
late. Like, whatever. Let's just do it.
Let's go in, but again, it wasn't. It was about where people stood right then in that place.
Well, this is good to
How
tie.
long-
This
how
is good
long
to
ago
tie
was
this. This
How
is
long ago was this?
4 months, 5
Who
months.
knows? Who
It's a
knows?
lot-
Twitter
it's a lot.
time.
Okay.
But to get back to whether I'm a hip hop journalist, I think that came to be seen as a pejorative over time. I think there were people who like, I write for Vibe, I'm a hip hop journalist, I don't actually know how to report, I don't know how to do secondaries, I don't know how to find sources, but I write about rappers, therefore I'm a hip hop journalist. Am I that kind of hip hop journalist? No. Am I a journalist whose root and backing is hip hop and that informs my criticism and informs my idea generation? Yes. Look, when in the 90s, when I came up, I would read Rolling Stone and they would have rap reviews written by people who very
Knew nothing
obviously
about
did
rap,
not
right.
listen to rap music.
Right.
And it's funny, this has been coming up a lot recently because there's a lot of tension about like, oh, who can write about Chief Keef and who can say something.
8.5.
I mean, in someone's mind,
Right.
yes. But I think in the 90s, it was very rare. You'd have people who write for The Source and then people who covered rap for mainstream publications. I mean, Spin was actually very good at the time. John Leland and Charles Aaron were doing a lot of good work. But I would read that and I'd be like, I can do that. I should do that.
Right.
And I think that informed my sense of drive and purpose to want to do that and then to crack those spaces. And then there was actually a time in the early 2000s when the hip hop reviewers for Rolling Stone were like me and Chris X. And I was just like, okay, we get it.
Does hip hop inform the way when you cover style pieces?
I think
sometimes?
so, of course. Well, this is the thing. Like, think about everyone who covers, all the guys who grew up on rock music who them growing up on rock music, or more specifically, hermetically sealed white culture, those guys, their taste is very informed. It informs all the things that they do.
Of course.
In my mind, I said this on I maybe said this on a podcast with the Fake Short Guy dude. Like, if you are working at a
Andrew,
major,
what up?
Yeah, what's up, Andrew?
What's up, Ant?
If you are working at a major national publication writing about music, whether it's Rolling Stone or the Times, the LA Times, or whatever, and you do not have a grammar of contemporary black music, hip hop and R&B, if that is lost on you, if you're just like, well, I don't know, I guess Kanye's got a record, you should not be writing about popular music. Not in 2013.
I was about to ask you about that quote. 'Cause
Straight
I
up.
really appreciate that. You basically said if you're a pop critic, you have to
It
have
is
a
the
firm
job.
understanding
It is
of
the
black
job.
contemporary music.
I'm lucky that I grew up in it,
Right.
and I see it, and I see through the lens.
Right.
But that is the job. Look, a thing that's happening right now with the shift to dance music being so popular is you're getting a lot of pop critics caught flat-footed because they did
'Cause they
not
know
go.
nothing.
They
Right.
didn't go to raves. They don't never listen to a Chemical Brothers record. The last dance records they listened to were disco records. So you're getting a lot of people out there to be like, I have no idea what to cover, and I feel like it's my job to learn. To fill in the holes in my knowledge base, and then hopefully write something that's smarter than the next man. or woman.
That's actually catching a lot of people off guard right now. I was in one of my secret society meetings
Illuminati.
a couple weeks back, and we were going over some music, and what was the one record? Oh man, the what's the Rihanna record?
What? We found love.
No, the newer one.
Shine bright like a diamond.
Love's-
It's
The one with the
Where Have
bands
You
that
Been?
make.
I think it's Where Have You Been. I think it's called Where Have You Been.
Oh yeah.
Where have you been?
Where have you been?
And it's just so obvious that like you guys just don't like. This record it's rocking right now for a reason.
Right.
This is banging, but it's just not in your world.
It's not your experience.
It's not your experience.
And I always want to read. Look, I believe that people can have informed opinions that are informed by different sets of backgrounds.
Right.
That said, I think if you're working in this area and you don't speak hip hop to some degree, you're failing.
Yeah.
And I think 5 years from
Because
now,
it's the
you can say the
current
same thing about dance. You can
Right.
say the same thing about dance music in 2017, probably. So to answer the question very concisely, it informs what I do. It informs. Look, I learned about politics from rap music. I learned about style from rap music. Like I learned about all those things from rap music. So that's my lens outward.
How could it not be?
Of course.
I felt like then the reason why I didn't consider you a hip hop journalist, and the reason why I pulled you away from that discussion I was having anyway, was just maybe some style pieces I had caught of yours.
Sure.
From the times, and I was just like, okay, John writes about.
I write about country. I write about bluegrass. You know what I'm saying? Like I write about metal. I write about everything.
That's your job.
That's the job. But I also I know what's in my DNA.
Right.
And I also think the thing that's interesting about the style column, you talk about the shopping column. Well, you read that polo column, so you know.
Of course,
right?
of course.
But look, my mom liked to go shopping. That's in me too. Like I used to tag along with her to Loman's in the Bronx.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
In that old gymnasium. That was a gymnasium.
Absolutely. I used to sit on the floor and watch her just rummage through the racks. Like that's in me too. It's a different side of me. It's and in a weird way, it is related to the rap side.
Incidents, he does have on some Black Elephant threes for those of you scoring at home.
Come on. You think I was going to come up here not like that?
John, I'm good to see you. Good to see you.
I can accept that.
Now y'all gotta go for a drink. man.
It's legitimate.
Yo,
We'll get a drink. We'll
Yo,
get a
John,
drink.
I want to talk about some pieces that you wrote, man.
Please.
Because I find it very interesting, man. And one piece called Beyond Authenticity, man. You write that Rick Ross is the first star of the post-truth era.
Right.
What is the post-truth era, man?
Okay. I think something that really... I think a lot of people who are of my generation, I assume our generation, I'm 37, a thing that we struggle with is this idea of rap as reality. And not just keeping it real, but that it is an actual document of a truth. Right. That it is, in a sense, journalism, in a way. And I think rap has always been theater.
Right.
I'm not saying it doesn't have truth quality or truth value, but rap is theater. Rock is theater.
Sure.
All art. It's all art.
Entertainment.
It's art.
Right.
So I never really got bent out of shape when people fudged the whatever. I maybe had I would invest in it as art more than narrative.
Okay.
But
So you never felt, even in your younger days, like calling someone out because you felt that they weren't.
I think when I was younger,
Right,
yes,
of course.
probably
'Cause that's
Of
natural when
course.
you're younger,
No,
right.
your instinct is to do that.
Right.
But for me, as I got older, and you start realizing like everyone's playing a part, everyone's playing a role. So when Ross comes along, and even in the face of very obvious evidence, is still very emphatically like, I'm this guy. He's actually not lying, because when he shows up and spits on a microphone, he's that
image, right? He's that guy.
And he's the first person who's verifiably not that guy.
Right.
Plenty of people are probably not that guy, but you can't prove it. Right. Ross, you can pretty much prove is not that guy, and yet he's a famous star. So when I say the post-truth era, I'm saying here's a generation of fans who are willing to forgive this perceived foible or this perceived flaw of Ross's. So that's what that was. I mean, I thought it was very important to say flat out, rap is character-based. Art is character-based. And Ross is taking advantage of that.
But even though I agree with you, it seems like the general fan base still don't get that.
Well, I mean, look, what is the general fan base? They're young.
They're young.
I mean, look, I had years of studying like social theory and da-da-da. Like I had ways of arriving at that maybe not everybody has access to. Like there's all sorts of privilege at play, you know? So I arrive at that idea maybe from a slightly left field perspective.
Right.
But I don't think it invalidates it as an idea. And I feel part of the thing about writing for a mainstream publication is if I have an idea that's like kind of a complicated idea, my goal is to communicate it in a crisp way that hopefully even if you don't know any of the
For the
theory
uninitiated.
any of the theory that underpins it,
Right.
even if you don't know it, you'll get like, oh, post-truth. Truth doesn't matter. Ross is not truthful.
Right.
It doesn't matter. He's still famous. If I can do that, then I'm winning.